Hello folks and welcome to Tippcast. Myself Shane Stapleton, head of sport, and Amina Guardian, Shane Brophy and Sean Flynn, hurling analyst for Tipperary back in the All-Ireland year of 2019. We haven't had too much to get excited about in the meantime, but Shane, I'll start off with you. Like 419 to 225, Tipperary drew down in Park Creek. So, I mean, whether it's a point gained or a point lost, most of us will feel a point lost. But it's just brilliant to have a Tipperary team to get excited about.
Yeah, it is. Like Sean has been doing the columns, I think, for the last 2 or 3 years, and I think.
Yeah, keep going there, Shane.
Yeah, Sean's been doing the columns for the last few years, and they've always been a little negative, but definitely the first 2 ones this year have definitely been more optimistic and more positive. So if he's happy, we're on the right road. Like so. I suppose it was in some ways it was frustrating not to have won the game, but in some ways it's great that we dictated it for a lot of it. I think, look, it's still a group of players with a management team that's in its early days. They're still trying to get their ideas across in terms of bedding in terms of what's needed, particularly defensively, and how certain guys gel together, and they know maybe when a guy is out of position and what to do. And I think that's a lot of what's going on with our defensive issues at the moment. But look, in terms of if you take a comparable thing from last year's match in Semple Stadium, where we were so far off Cork's level, it was scary. This move on 12 months, we in some ways surpassed them. Like if you look at the scoreline, 27 scores to 23. I think that was the fact that Tipp scored 4 more scores. I think it was probably a fair reflection of Tipp's overall dominance. But when you're conceding goals, it's hard to win matches.
Sean, talk to us about that. So your columns have gone from somewhat negative to fairly positive, Shane Brophy says.
Yeah, I said in the column this week, like, it was hard the last few years trying to enjoy hurling games. Limerick aren't in it, because you're kind of saying you're just not going to get away with that against Limerick, some passages of play. And even Saturday, I know we conceded 4 goals, but I just thought, like, for the first time, you really see we're really after, buying into maybe the shape of a team and how important that is in the modern game. And like, yourselves, that there's no such thing as positions really at the moment. It's just about, funneling into that middle third area, protecting your back line, and then going at a team. And I thought Marcio and Jake Morrison side were just phenomenal at times. Like, and probably Jake was probably, you could say even he's still a bit quiet, but he still scored, 3 points or 4 points, whatever he scored. And Marcio scored 1-4. He was excellent. And even as a puck out target, he was excellent. But no, I just feel that, you couldn't be not positive about what the management are doing with the players. The buy-in out of the players is unbelievable. It looks like they're just absolutely emptying themselves for each other. And yourselves, as like, it's kind of an era of sports psychology and performance coaches and doing all things that team building. Like, there's nothing like walking off the field there in Cork, I'd say, for those players after absolutely emptying it. Like, and I know they didn't get the win, but like, that game had to be won twice probably, and they done it, and it looked like they could have stayed going for another. I know the lads were tiring a bit, but I'd say no matter what Cork threw them, they were just going to stay going. Like,
yeah. Who were the players that really impressed you in this game, Shane?
I should like the most of them on the Tipp side. I think that was another element of why you feel we left the point behind, was most of the better individual performances were on Tipp side. I thought our half back line were excellent. Like, they really laid the platform. Dan McCormack, Jesus, he's such a warrior. Like, he reminds me of Declan Fanning back in the 10 team. He'll just do the gritty the non-sexy work. He's good at that. I got Brian O'Mara. I thought it was his best game at this level, at the senior intercounty level, and there's more to come from him. Like, he's going to fill out, he's going to be better. I thought Ronan Maher I thought was very, very good, and I suppose there was a few times where, you could see probably the word has got to him, don't be shooting. He was going for a big wind up, but no, he let the ball inside and did it well. Midfield, Seamus Kennedy was terrific. Like, and Alan Tyne, and like they'll order the midfield. And I just thought Seamus Kennelly's positional sense of knowing when to be out in the wing, and like he wasn't found out in the wing for those 2 points in the first half by chance. Like that was they obviously saw something in the Cork game plan to say, okay, if the ball is over the far side, James, you've got to stay wide and be an option. And sure, of course, Noel McGrath was just majestic. Like Seamus Hickey would give Alan Tynan the official man of the match. McGrath was my man of the match. I just thought he was amazing. Like his brain is just he's so cool in the most hectic of moments and knowing what to do with the right thing, especially the pass for Gerard O'Connor. That was just after Cork got their second goal, I think, and maybe an easy point maybe would have been handy there just to settle us down. No, he saw the right option was to play in O'Connor, and he got the goal. He said Jake Morris was outstanding, Mark Keogh off the bench, very, very good. Like Conor Stakelum again brought that energy at that wing forward position, dropping back. So look, there was an awful lot. You'd like maybe one or two more of the forwards to contribute, but look, overall, you'd have to be very, very happy with what we got from an awful lot of the players last weekend.
Sean, like in the last year or two, look, maybe you haven't seen him that often, but would you have seen much of Ross Gray, and would you have seen this coming from Alan Tynan?
I even remember him when he was younger. Like he was just ball of energy, that type of player. She was playing with footballers and hurlers. Watched him in a couple of games last year, and he's very good. And do you know what we have now is we have forwards that just are running effortlessly. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just they're just tearing around the field, and that's what we need. Like, and he's very abrasive, and what I like is he drops the shoulder. Like the amount of times he dropped the shoulder the other night when he got the ball and just took him on, and that
is not that the rugby influence. Like he's not scared of the hits that are going to come. He knows what's coming, but he knows if he draws 2 or 3 players to him, he'll slip the ball out the back and tip her in.
Yeah, and he looks a lot, like I'd say he's after getting a good run and not being injured as well.
Yeah.
And that looks like it's made an awful difference to him. But like, no, he's what we need. Like he's a bit of a target now for puck outs as well, which we need. Like
Well, what I felt like, beforehand, Shane, I was saying I'd love to see Mark Keogh and Conor Bowe starting. Fair enough, it didn't happen for Conor Bowe when he came on, but he got in good positions, and probably on other days he'll probably play a little bit better than that. But geez, Mark Keogh, when you consider that Jason Ford, who's the free taker and I suppose in many ways the leader of the forward line these days, for Keogh to come off the bench and hit 1-4, and Sean Ryan obviously he did struggle. I mean, he's good, very good, promising prospect, but he probably won't start the next day. But geez, Mark Keogh is surely going to start the next day. How could he not?
Yeah, you think so. And I suppose I think I said it last week that I thought this was a game made for Mark Keogh. And obviously, look, Sean Ryan was probably edging him out in training, and they went on that. And look, actually, Sean Ryan, in terms of work rate and everything, he was very, very good. Just maybe, and he scored a cracking point. Just a small bit of naivety at this level. And look, he's going to get better. There's no doubt about it. He will benefit an awful lot from that half an hour the last day. But you could like Mark Keogh as soon as he came in, cracking point off the left wing. I thought there was a 15-minute spell in the second half where he a little bit quiet, but God, his last 20 minutes were outstanding. And like that, I suppose the only mistake he made was, that point he took on. Like he usually, the play died, and we all thought, what's going on here? Everybody expected the ref to pull up a free for Kieran Joyce, and he didn't. And maybe the fact he only took the point maybe saved maybe a bit of frustration breaking out among the Cork players and supporters if he had allowed it. But no, look, I think that the big thing for me with Keogh is the next game. I think I said it here last year when he was brilliant against Waterford that he had come of age and he didn't kick on. And I think the next game is so important for him. And look, the next game is against the best team in the country. And if he comes out of that game having another very, very strong performance, you'd have to think he's bedding himself in as a starter in that forward line.
Yeah, do you see Cork as a realistic challenger this year, Sean? I mean, I suppose considering Limerick aren't exactly shooting the lights out just at the moment, and we know that can change very quickly, like anyone's a contender at this stage.
No, definitely. And I think even the game on Saturday would be a good kind of tune-in for Limerick in ways, because, I mean, Cork really kind of dropped deep. Cork really wanted Tipp to just try and run it through the middle and then try and turn him over. And as Shane said, like, I just another thing going forward. I thought we used our wit unbelievable, and like
Can
I
you
just felt
explain that, Sean? Though, like, what do you mean exactly? Just for people who wouldn't pay the same level of attention.
But like the last couple of years, I feel like it's all about that middle third, and I think we've been just putting lads in there, and we're still kind of hitting passes in tight areas. And I kind of said in the column there, like off the shoulder is a thing that's used and a kind of word that's used, but that's a football thing. Whereas hurling, it's really about wit, and obviously you have to give the odd ball off the shoulder, but it's about using those stick passes like Noel McGrath did to Seamus. And I just feel before we're just putting bodies in for the sake of it, where now I think we've bodies in that middle third, but lads know I need to hold my wit. I'm not getting sucked in. If I'm a wing forward, I come through the middle, or when we have the ball and we're coming out of our backs, I hold my wit and be there for a pass. That sort of way. And I think that's coaching, and that's what Cahill and Beavens are doing. And I think that's what you need against Limerick, because if you bring it into that condensed area against Limerick, they'll eat you alive. Any backline, like the game of hurling now is not for backs. It's for, it is all about forwards and attacking. And if you stretch a team, it's very hard to defend no matter what numbers you have. I remember being in Dr. Maris Park talking to Eamon O'Shea one day, and there was no one on the field. The lads weren't out in the field yet. And he said, look, the field was empty. We looked down into 65. He said, that's the width of the field. That's the space there. He says, no matter how many players you put in there, he goes, you can still make space. And it's about how you position them and how you move. So I just think we're hurling a lot more intelligently, and I think we probably upsetted Cork's plan a bit in terms of like Declan Dalton, all these lads that went back, packed the middle, Barrett, and like I think we turned them over 20 times in possession, and we scored 9 points off turnovers in the middle third, and that just tells you like what we were doing. Like,
yeah, for sure. Shane, on the flip side, we have to accept that Ronan Maher was very fortunate not to get a red card, because we've talked about it a lot lately, and we can't. What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Oh yeah, look. There's no. I don't think there's anybody with a blue and gold glasses on would say that Ronan was very, very fortunate. And look, like you're not. I get frustrated sometimes when I see people defend their county man just because he's wearing their county jersey. Look, he didn't go to intentionally hurt him. He just was mistimed. A mistimed shoulder to the head is still a red card. Richie Hogan has been brought up in the last few days of how he's been hard done by. No, he wasn't. It was just that James Owens applied the rule correctly. A lot of referees are not applying the rule correctly. If a shoulder to the head is a red card, and at the end, I suppose the fortunate thing for him is he got booked. But I don't agree with that. This thing of once the referee deals with it, it can't be retrospectively upgraded. Like that's another. Like you're not. How would you say you're not? How would you say you're not taking away the power of the referee? The referee has to make a decision. He only gets one view in that split second of what, and he makes a call on it. If would Ronan Maher and Seamus Flanagan have any cause to be pissed off if Croke Park decided you're getting one game bans after it, even though you weren't sent off? No, because it and we saw it in the Kerry Offaly game, that the challenge as well, that there was like somebody's going to get seriously hurt, but the GAA sort of allowing not I suppose dealing with retrospective punishments for head high tackles. These things are going to stay happening, and somebody's going to get seriously hurt.
Yeah. Any thoughts on it, Sean?
Yeah. No. Look, it happened so quick, and like Fitzgibbon's head kind of nearly popped out past Mikey Breen, and I'd say Ronan was just wanted to line. He thought Fitzgibbon's going to win the ball and go off on a run, and I'd say Ronan was like, lovely, I can line this lad up now and put him out over the sideline. And because he fumbled the ball, then he was down lower and he got in the head. I don't think, and look, it's not like no one in the morning of a game is saying I'm going to line up and do a head high tackle on a player. They are dangerous. Like, red card off for the rest of the game, I don't know. Maybe that 10-minute thing, maybe, and the player can come back on. I don't know.
Fitzgibbon had to go off though with a concussion.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, that's the other side of it. But yeah, it's happening so quick. And then I think because rugby, we're all seeing rugby now, and this is happening rugby, and it's just feeding into there. And they are still dangerous tackles. And like, geez, if I was on the sideline with the team, you'd be giving out. But like, there is some instance where it's just so quick, you catch him. John started with. There are some. I think the Seamus Flanagan is another one where it just happened so quick, and his hand went up and bang. But I think to some of them where, yeah, you had time to actually, maybe adjust your body. But I think the one on Saturday night was just pure. It just.
Look, I think I go back, like a lot of the head high shots in rugby they're not intentional either. But and it's the same in GAA. But I think like anything with the head, anything that can be done to maybe stamp, maybe the next time Ronan Maher lines up a player, and he just might have to think twice. Like, and okay, maybe the beauty nailed on shoulder to drive a ladder, so maybe that's not the best way to go. Like, I
put it this way:
yeah.
If Dara Fitzgibbon won that ball and took the shoulder off Ronan, and Dara Fitzgibbon turned and still was able to run through, the whole half of that field was open, and you'd be giving out him for not going in with his arms out rather than going in with the shoulder.
But then I'd say, but then I'd say if Ronan wasn't on the yellow, he would have pulled Robbie O'Flynn down before he got moving. Like you could see Ronan wanted to do it, but he knew he couldn't because he was going to go off. Like, that's where that you've got to be very, very careful in what you do. Like, so.
But to me, like both of those situations, rather than coming in and looking for the shoulder to bury someone, which Johnny Ryan did, and he only and look, he had a good game. He just propelled on Robbie O'Flynn. Like, it's very rarely that you can line someone up and bury them. Now, it does happen now and again, but like the days of just knocking a lad over with a shoulder when he's in full flight, they're rare enough. So surely it should be come in to battle, frustrate, make the guy play the ball, and then knock it off his stick.
Plus Darragh was giving us near the sideline, which is an extra defender for us. Like, so
like,
that was a chance of a free turnover.
Like, Ronan Maher's stronger, so surely battle him up should be the message going forward, because otherwise you risk red cards. We all want the physicality, but like, you have to be smart about it too. Can I throw this to Sean, just in terms of defending? The first two games of the championship, Tipperary obviously against Clare the first day won that game, but Tipp have offered up 12 goal scoring opportunities in 2 games. 7 have been scored. What's happening, do you reckon, back there, or what can be done to sort of tighten that up?
Well, I definitely think we improved on the Clare game. Like, Clare game, we conceded 53 shots. We only conceded, I think, 38. I think
38, yeah.
Against Cork. Like, the goals against Clare, some of them were, you're like, that's a defensive thing. Like, the first goal, I think that's just us not being set after hitting a quick poke out.
But still slow to react.
Yeah, slow to react. I think the second goal, sideline cut, look, hindsight's great. As I say, hindsight's the foresight of a gobshite. Like, as in terms of...
I just come back, that's a technique. At this level, Ronan Maher shouldn't be coming from the far wing to the other wing to take a side. Like, that's got to be Dan McCormick's ball. Like, that. I think, okay, Ronan can drive it 70 yards, but like, you're impacting your setup just for a line ball, which I don't think is. I don't think it's a smart play.
No, like the third goal, breaking ball short of the goalie, long ball in, breaking ball. So there's small little things where you can actually fix easy enough. Like, I think we are in a bit of trouble on our poke out still. Like, we've
Can you explain how?
Like, I think the last day we were like Barry, and he's done it really well last year and this year. We're going for those mid-range puckouts that are hitting around midfield. Yeah. And Cork were probably wise to that the other day now. And like, they cut it out. When we went long, I thought we were a bit more comfortable the last day. Now, I don't know is that again because we're playing Cork, but I thought Mark Keogh broke some nice balls, Garrod O'Connor, and I think they're really important, lads. They have to be playing well during play because they are our 2 men that are going to break ball or get on breaks and win primary possession. Like, if you look at the puckouts from the last day, like we hit Garrod 5 times. I think we hit Mark 4 times, and like every ball that was hit on Mark, we won. We either won the break or he won possession himself. And I think we hit 5 on Garrod and he won 4 of them. Or he won 3 of them. So like, they're your 2 main men. Like, but I thought we were good. We were better on the breaking ball as well. I don't know about those goals. I think, you know, if you looked at the breaking ball on that third goal, you'd be saying to your defenders, man first. If the ball is there to be won, you go and win it. But some of us were kind of saying, ball's in the air, let's break, let's try and read it. No, that scenario, you just have to say, lads, man first, be physical off the ball. If the ball breaks in front of you, then you go and win it, rather than trying to be like Nostradamus, trying to predict where the ball is going to land and, you know, get a nice win on the back of a break or the side of a break. Do you want to start with?
Yeah,
Just
and there's a comment here. Shane, I'll just read this comment because it's good and throw it to you. Clare and Cork are the two fastest sets of forwards out there. Perhaps the worst is behind us in terms of conceding large numbers of goals through pace issues. Go ahead, Shane.
Yeah, no, I was just going to bring up just another thing I would have heard a lot on Sunday is a bit of criticism for Barry Hogan in terms of the goals he conceded, but like 3 to 4, like I'm not sure. I don't think you do, and especially the bats, you can't. The goalies have no chance really, and I'm not sure what I think the Darragh Fitzgibbon goal. Like generally, your goalie is told to go out and narrow down the angle, and I suppose he did the right thing going out to Lehane. Like what obviously to do, stay on his line, and make it easier for him. I don't know. I just think there's a high expectation. Like if a goalkeeper's not saving shots, but geez, I thought Cork were very the pass from Kingston to Hayes was brilliant. Like any other forward probably taking on the shot himself, but geez, I thought Kingston when he came on was ridiculous, and Cork must be so frustrated that how when they start him he does very little, but when he comes on he looks like an all-star. I don't know I just wonder what you thought of Barry Hogan.
Go ahead there, Sean.
Yeah, I don't think there's nothing you can do about those goals. I think, like as you said, you're on top of him. You're making split decisions. There's no way that last goal where he goes out, he can get across. Like you either have to go or not go. He still admit, go back to the Clare game, lads. When Clare were coming at us in that first half, he made a vital save with his body. So he has improved that side of his game. And again, these lads are only these lads are so young in their inter-county career, and I know that's not an excuse, but Mark Keogh still is only getting, Barry, all these players, we've so many lads learning on the job. So I think you have to be a bit more, I suppose, forgiving. But no, I think Barry's suffering for maybe scores that went in maybe a couple of years ago when he was playing with Tipp, and lads are still coming back to that, and they're using that, and then they just have this opinion of him. But geez, he's our best goalie at the moment, and he is able to hit the bullets out when they need to, and he's very comfortable hitting out balls out to his backs as well. So I think he's given our backs that extra bit of time with those puck outs that he's hitting at the moment.
Yeah, not to mention it's been 2 away games from 2, so you're in the belly of the beast down in Cork and Clare, 37,000 people more or less the other day. And Shane, not too many Tipperary people in terms of if you were to weigh it up overall.
Well, I'd say there was definitely more than there was in Ennis. I say when you're just drowned out by the guts of 30,000 Cork supporters, it looks poor. But no, I thought there was a very vocal Tipp crowd down there. Look, 7 o'clock on a Saturday for Tipp supporters is not difficult, but I thought there was a fair chunk, and it was great to see. I met a busload of Killer One lads on Saturday. I think they were taking in the Stag as well. So I definitely think, and maybe we'll chat later on, I think the Munster Council, I'd say, are definitely going to schedule Saturday night games going forward. I know they weren't keen originally, but just the way the last 2 Saturday, particularly maybe where you have Cork and Limerick, where there's the social element, you can go out after the evening, and I'm not sure whether Thurles would suck people up for a Saturday night game, but I just thought it was a cracking atmosphere, and from anybody I was talking to, I was up in Lura there last night. Everybody's talking about the Limerick game. There's only people are looking for tickets, and look, it's going to be a cracking atmosphere. I'd be surprised if the 40,000 isn't reached that day, and even just 46,300 is the official capacity, and geez, I think it'll go very, very close to being full.
Let's hope it is. And just in terms of the Tipp team and the goal chances conceded, if you go through the team, right? So Michael Breen hasn't played in defence for years. He missed an awful lot of the league. So just in terms of trying to gel the backs together, Johnny Ryan, first season, Ryan O'Mara, first championship season, Ronan Maher, obviously, he is regularly there. Dan McCormack back more defensively. He's used to it, but what I'm saying is this is a very much changed defence, and when it's coming up against star forwards, Sean, you have to expect chances will come in. And like you said, the term learning on the job is very true here.
Yeah, and I just think that's the way we're going to be. And that's the beauty about it. Like, we're going to go at teams and we're going to get scores ourselves, and because of that, we're going to concede a bit more. Like, we probably play a small bit higher in terms of than Cork did, and like, you go back to it, then, like, you saw the Wexford and Dublin. I watched back the Wexford and Dublin game, and you see two teams that are, teams that are going really deep, and like it's probably like pick your poison kind of sort of thing. Like, we go out and we outshoot teams and we really go for it, and as a consequence, we do concede a couple of scores. But I think some of those goals the last day were not Cork brilliance. They were our mistakes, and they as he said, then they have the players to punish you. And what I think is, like, your Mikey Breen a few times, excellent pieces of one-on-one defending, chasing down, chasing. Johnny Ryan kept chasing, putting Cork backs off. I think, there was some excellent cases of one-on-one defending where the lads were, if the Cork lad got through them or around them, it was another goal chance. So, like, it's a tough ask for the backs at the moment. In most backlines that are going out playing, like, 15-15, you're going to be dealing with lots of space, and it's just about that one-on-one defending at times. I still think maybe we'll come the Waterford game at the end, I think we'll be a bit more solid. I think we're just, as he said, like, as you said, Shane, you named out all the lads. I think we're just getting it together, and even our midfield, not even, who we're putting in midfield, we're still getting that cohesion where lads are dropping back. Like, I remember watching the Kilkenny game, and a couple of times, a few of the players just weren't getting back, whereas you can see now they're trying to bust their arse to get back. Like,
well, I think is it something we can take from Limerick and over the last few years, that no matter, even if Limerick were only a pint up around the 50-minute mark, they sat back 5 yards. They more or less played on the counter attack. They just swallowed you up and hit you on the break. Like, they either sold it up the field, or they hit a diagonal ball 750 yards into Gillan or Flanagan, and they just kept the scoreboard ticking over. I just think if a call went in around the 50-minute mark, 55-minute mark, to say, okay, lads, we retreat 5 yards, halfback, midfield 5 yards, half hour, just it narrows the space for the opposition to play in, and then if we can devise somewhere, we turn them over and then hit them under the way. And we know, like, Jake Morris and Mark Yo, very, very good to run onto the diagonal ball, and it would just give because I just thought we were, with Leeds against Cork and also against Clare, we were very, very open in the last 10 minutes, even with Leeds.
Sean, just before you go, I know you have to head off to school there. Can you give us your thoughts on the under-20 championship? Tipperary are out after 3-17 points defeat to Clare, and Keith Smith scored 2-7 there. But just your review of the season there for the under-20s.
Yeah, look, there's some nice hurlers there, there's some forwards there, which is really important. So, look, you can't be winning every year. I know some people kind of giving out about the way Tipp played and very deep and stuff like that, and probably not committing a lot of forwards at times. But look, you have to back management. Maybe the management didn't, seen something that, they're trying to protect themselves, their defence or something like that. But like, Clare are coming, which is, it just shows you when you do put in the work. Clare are very good online to promote the work they're doing with their underage teams. So that's disappointing, but like Canali and these lads, definitely see a future for them. And like, this is my thing now. We need to have there needs to be another team there, or a management, S&C coach, for all these players, that for the next 2 years they're getting that. They might be good enough to be on the senior team now, but they're getting it. Like, I just see in the hand there this year. We had a lad, he didn't make the 20s. He's underage next year. He was training every Friday night all over the winter. They were playing matches. They were doing training sessions. He's came back in unbelievable nick, and he's, after improving, immensely. And just going to the Limerick game before I go, you're saying about the full back line. I think we need to be very careful the next day now. I think they'll try and pull Mikey Breen away from the goals, and then you could do a bit of aerial bombardment on top of Cahill and Johnny Ryan. If you think about the goals that we conceded last year, we are in Galan and these players, and even the goal in the league. So that's something we need to be really worried about. We're not worried about, but we need to be tuned into. And then the other thing with Limerick, the one thing I'd be worried about is putting Kyle Hayes back up at 11. I think they probably need to do it. And he has hurt us in the past. Like, if you look at he'd no shots against Clare. If you go back to the All-Ireland final last year, there was 11 puck-outs hitting him. So he was the main target in puck-outs. He scored 4 points in play. He assisted 4 or 5 scores. He was their go-to man. And he's what we're talking about, what we want in Alan Tyne, these lads. He's getting the ball in 65 and he's still going in towards the D. So that's another thing we need to worry about. But I think this is a free hit in a way against Limerick, and I don't think it's not a barometer of where we are. If we go out and perform well and good, we take it and bring it into the Waterford game, we go in that and we get out of Munster and hope maybe get to a Munster final. But I just think there's a few things now, and you don't know what Limerick are going to come with. I'd say they're wounded enough, but like, the beauty about this is we're just going to go at it. Like, that's what I find this year is you just feel we're going to go at it. Everybody knows what they have to do in most areas of the field, and it gives you a chance, and it's keeping us in games, I think.
Okay, well, look, Sean, I know you have to head off to school there, so thanks very much, and we'll chat to you again soon.
Here, Sean.
Chat to you, lads.
Okay, so Sean's column is in the Nina Guardian this week, so don't be afraid to go out and pick that up. There's loads of great stuff, reviews and previews and so on and so forth. Shane, the thing is for Limerick, right, and we'll come back to the 20s in a second, is that if Clare beat Waterford this weekend and then Cork beat Clare, Limerick are one poor result away from being out of the championship, 1 defeat. So they're actually starting to walk the tightrope just a small bit. And, that could bring a little bit of nervousness into performances. Keane Lynch, will he be okay? Obviously, Sean Flynn is out. Declan Hannon had an injury the first day, played the last day. Wouldn't take too much.
Yeah, it's probably the first time in the last few years where there's a small bit things are not running smoothly for them in terms of performance. Like, look, you could say last year they were out Peter Casey and they were out Keane Lynch and still in the Ireland fine, but they still had the squad. But now you say there's little bits and pieces, niggly injuries, key injuries. Like they're, I don't think Limerick will be. I'd say it's all about performance now. Like the 3 weeks, it's perfect for them. Like they maybe getting to the league final probably hurt them a small bit too, that they weren't able to get proper focused preparation for the championship. Maybe this is the time now where they can go away. I heard something that maybe they took a week off last week, and definitely they looked a bit stale, I think, in the first 2 games, and maybe be interesting to see how fresh they come back against Tipperary. And I'd have no doubt about it. Like, they'll be coming into Thurles. They'll see this as a ferocious challenge, an upcoming Tipp team coming in with momentum, and they'll feel that these guys are a threat to us. And I just think it's beautifully set up for a cracker on Sunday week. I just can't wait to see how we set up, how we compete against them. And geez, if we could win, ball well and good. Like, it would be remarkable. You think of all the things you try and foresee. The last thing you would have foreseen this year is Limerick eliminated before their last game. Like, and I don't see it happening, but that's not to say it couldn't happen.
Yeah, well, it's mathematically it could happen. That could be a cracking atmosphere. So the Tipperary under-20s, so as I said, it was 3-17 for a finish, and that scoreline probably sounds a little bit unreflective of the match because it was very tight going into the last couple of minutes. But down the stretch, the Banner outscored Tipperary 2-3 to 0. That's their 3rd clean sheet in 5 games, so that's great stuff for Terence Fahy's team. But like Tipperary, the manner of fading away late on, that definitely will displease Brendan Cummins.
I don't think it was the fade out. I just think they just didn't hurl well in the night. Like the last goal was a defensive error. Like the goalie let the ball slip through his hands. It just summed up Tipp's performance on the night. They were very flat. Their first touch was off. There was so much fumbling of possession. Just like Clare weren't much better, but they were the better team on the night. Like, and like they drove an awful lot of wides. Like, they should have been 4, 5, 6 points up at half time. They took their chances and Tipp didn't. And I think the one thing that surprised me was that after the game against Limerick and Waterford, where it looked like I was frustrated against Clare and Cork, where we seemed to be carrying too much ball through the lines, and we were a bit more direct against Waterford and against Limerick, where we got the 2 wins. That we seemed to go back to the way we played against Clare the first day, and it just didn't suit us. I just thought I look, it'll probably frustrate the management too, of how for a semi-final game like that, where you have to find a little bit of extra freshness, a little bit of extra spark, that we seem to play it like an ordinary round robin game rather than a semi-final. That the spark and the urgency and the tension of a semi-final just didn't seem. Clare seemed to treat it as a knockout game where a little bit extra was needed, but Tipp didn't. I just, whether they got the preparation slightly wrong, that's the only thing I can figure out, is that particularly because they're fumbling of the ball, they looked nervous, they looked apprehensive instead of relishing the challenge that seemed to be inhibited by it a small way.
And just broadly speaking, do you see with the 2 underage teams, minors and under 20s, who are, they're both out at this stage, is the feeling that both management teams will remain for next year as is? Because I'm sure they both have aspirations of moving up the grades. But with Cahill and Bevan's only in, you'd imagine that would be the status quo.
Yeah, I think James Woodlock's term is up, so it'll be. I think Brendan got 3 years, so he has 1 more year. But I suppose if you were looking at it from if you were looking for a point of view, what's the ideal scenario? You'd like Woodlock maybe to go with the group of guys that he had maybe last year, start moving up to the 20s. But then what do you do with Brendan? Like Brendan, I thought first year was excellent. You think there was an awful lot of momentum to take from last year's campaign into this year's campaign, particularly when he had 18 guys he was bringing with him. But I suppose some of the players that we thought would kick on from last year didn't. So Michael Corcoran couldn't get a place in the starting team. I think he was a starter last year. Sean Kennelly had a good campaign. I thought Peter McGarry, he was probably the closest one. Maybe an Adam Hogan type who you think would be good enough for a senior panel, but still eligible for 20. I thought he didn't really kick on. He got 3 points the other night, but I was looking for a bit more from him. And Darrell Stakelum was quiet on the night. Not to be negative about it, but not all negative. I thought our full back line last Monday were terrific. Like Danny Slattery and Luke Shanahan, of the players of this campaign, I think they're definitely probably senior cornerbacks in the make, and just all the right attitudes. Robert Doyle at full back was good. Cathal Quinn at wing back. There's a player there too. If he fills out, he's going to be excellent. Kennelly, if Kennelly definitely has a senior future too. If he's developed in the right way. I thought Eddie Ryan did too much of his better hurling away from the goal. He needed to be further up the field, threatening look, as you said, look, you can't be winning. It's hard to win championships every year. You're always looking for who, as Sean said, there are players that can go on and play senior level. There's no doubt about it. But as a group this year, hoping to win a championship, they probably didn't hit the heights we would have hoped.
Yeah, I want to come on to the GAA Go conversation in a second. But first off, just to talk about Leinster, Darragh Egan's Wexford lost 122 to 23 points against Dublin. That was Darragh Egan, yeah. Darren Gleeson then had a tough day at the office. Antrim 320, Kilkenny 531. In the other game, we might as well mention that Westmeath were hockeyed by Galway, 17 points to 633. But just for Darren Gleeson and Darragh Egan, that was a tough weekend at the office.
Yeah, just start with Darren Gleeson first. I wasn't surprised it happened. I think they would have put so much into the Dublin and Wexford games that even though you had Kilkenny coming to Belfast, big occasion, that psychologically and physically they would have been spent. And I think Kilkenny knew that, and I think that's why Kilkenny went for the kill early on. And it was a challenge match score essentially, 521 to 320. 320 would win a lot of matches, but 531 wouldn't. So I suppose Wexford, we all knew it was going to be tight, and I didn't see an awful lot of it. But look, was it 51 shots to 31, and they still lost the game? It smacks to me that they're. I don't know. still an awful lot of naivety, even though you have an awful lot of forwards there, Chin, McDonald, Rory O'Connor, with an awful lot of experience, that they shouldn't be taking on shots from poor angles. I know maybe you were there and you saw it. Like, were they bad wides or were they bad shots? A lot of them
awful wides. Like, as in, there was some really bad wides and there was some really bad shot selections. And this is something we see time after time with Wexford, that they just decide, like, even the backs, they decide, you know what, I'm going to put Snow on this and get me lovely point from 90 yards. Something that Clare do a bit too often with their half-backs. Something that Tipperary have been doing over the years, but it seems to have, there's less of that now. The ball's been popped around in lovely diagonals to the inside forward line, which is what a team needs if it's going to have a goal threat. But yeah, like, not starting Conor McDonald, I think, I don't get it. He came on, he scored a couple of points. Maybe he doesn't always have a great game against Owen O'Donnell, who was actually carrying an ankle injury coming into the game. And that might have explained why early on he did one or two uncharacteristic things. But later on then he stood up, especially winning a 50-50 against Lee Chin late on. But Sean Brennan, and obviously, look, he's been a teammate of mine with Kula for many, many years. He made a great save out of the top corner from Cahill Dunbar, and that was with 63 minutes gone. And at that stage, that would have put Wexford level. And they were just chasing the game down the stretch, and Dublin just managed to do enough. And Donald Burke, I mean, he has such good wrists. He'd happily grace the blue and gold jersey. That's actually his club jersey with Nafina as well. But Dublin fully deserved the win here. They don't create as many chances. They don't have the forwards. Like, Wexford do have the forwards. And they're putting up just 23 points. And they didn't have that many goal chances. They had one or two. But very, very disappointing. I think Darragh Egan is going to have to go to, come up against Kilkenny. To be fair, last year they won in Kilkenny. But he's going to have to do it this year again. Like, back-to-back championship wins over Kilkenny would be huge. But that's what they need now, or otherwise he's under pressure. I suppose it's different with Darren Gleeson because people aren't really expecting.
You wouldn't put it past Wexford to beat. You wouldn't put it past Wexford to beat Kilkenny at home, like, backs against the wall, do what they did in Nolan Park last year, come out fighting. But I don't know, it doesn't seem to be going. I know they had the draw with Westmeath last year, but it doesn't seem that it to be running as smoothly. And they have had an awful lot of injuries this year, and that hasn't helped. They have an awful lot of guys that have missed an awful lot of training, but I wouldn't write them out. And you don't know what. Look, it's Kilkenny. It's a rivalry game. It's probably going to be a huge crowd that weekend in Wexford Park. And then if Kilkenny are sitting on 7 points going into that game, already qualified in the top three, and if they have maybe an niggly injury to a key player, their thing's probably going to sit them. So it mightn't be a full strength Kilkenny. I think Kilkenny will probably go out as strong as they can, but if they a bit of a niggly injury, I think Ling will sit them. So that might open the door for Wexford to get the result. But then it'd be interesting to see what would happen with assuming Dublin lose to Kilkenny and Nolan Park, which probably will as well. So there's a lot of interesting games finishing up in the Leinster Championship.
Yeah, I mean, Antrim go away to Galway next. It's not going to get any easier there. Sure, like with Galway putting up 6-33 against Westmeath.
Like the Antrim Westmeath actually will decide that for relegation. It's just I just wonder, have Antrim and Westmeath just come to the end of their cycle? You see Neil McManus probably his championship is over, and you just wonder, they've been on a lot of the same Antrim guys on the go for a good few years now. Probably need a fresh injection of blood, and whether they have it, it's hard to see. But look, there's just still games to go. So I'd say the weekend off will have done Antrim particularly no harm at all.
Yeah. The GAA Go debate that is raging on at the moment, and especially it's been really fueled by Virgin Media putting out a statement. I'll just read a part of it, and it goes, RT is a 50% shareholder in GAA Go. This has never been clarified in any editorial discussion about GAA Go and the decision not to show key games on free-to-air television, like Cork against Tipp. When Sky Television decided not to renew its GAA rights, GAA did not approach other broadcasters to ascertain whether they'd be interested in broadcasting these games, but arbitrarily decided to put them behind a paywall. The question mark must be asked, did RTE pay anything for these rights, or did they just agree to keep them behind a paywall to drive incremental revenue for both partners in GAA Go, i.e. RTE and the GAA? Given the multi-million increases in state funding to RTE over recent years, RTE now has more sports rights than it can show on its channels, with license payers now being forced to further subsidise RTE by paying for GAA sports content through its joint venture with GAA. Now, what we've heard in the meantime from Declan McBennett, who's head of the sport there in RTE, he's kind of suggested that there's only a certain amount of games that you can put on free to air, and so a lot of those have to be the provincial finals, so on and so forth. The likes of Clare against Limerick, that was originally due to be on RT, but because of is it some marathon
Great
or
Limerick run, yeah, it was
Great Limerick run, that was moved to Saturday night, therefore it had to go on GAA Go. And they've kind of suggested that a significant amount of money has been paid, and then there's also been counterclaims that there were a handful of conversations with Virgin Media about broadcasting, but obviously that came to nothing. What's your take on this?
I definitely, I definitely think it's sort of, I suppose, the fact that it's made live line for 2 days probably hasn't. It definitely hyped it up a small. I do think it's gone a little too far. I'm not. Look, I'd love to see more free to air games on telly, but we have to be realistic. Is that I suppose RTE they've only effectively the 2 channels. Like, I know if they started putting matches on the news channel, people will be given out there too. I do think some of what Virgin Media has suggested there that does need to be clarified, particularly the arrangement of GAA Go and I suppose the breakdown of their funding. And I think Declan McBennett was asked yesterday what they. I think they need to be upfront. There's an awful lot of people I know actually have it. Like, they paid the €59, the early bird at the 79. So, like, is it the fact that there's no Saturday games on? I know Martin Breheny in the Independent today suggested that going forward, if you had a Saturday night game every weekend with the 2 Sunday games, like I think that's pretty sufficient. Like, and then anything else after that goes on GAA Go if you want to watch it. Like, I do think it's the fact that it's the 2 hurling matches the last few weeks. If they had been average games, I don't think we would have heard an awful lot about it, if you know what I mean. But I know that's a weak argument, but I think that definitely that has helped it. People saying why were they showing the Connacht and Munster finals last weekend? They should have been on a paywall. Can you imagine if Clare or Sligo had won those matches last week and they were behind a paywall? Imagine the ruckus that would have caused. So then you have this time of the year. I know you're not a rugby fan, but this is the end of the rugby season where they have big games that need to be shown as well. And I think this is a Saturday week when the 2 big football matches are on, Kerry and Mayo and Galway. That's Heineken Cup final day, that'll dwarf anything in terms of viewing figures. I think those 2 matches would have as like, look, if you look at the viewing figures in 2022, I think some of the top 10, I think about 5 or 6 of them were rugby. Like, so I know there's a lot of GA people out there don't get the love in for rugby, but it's a very popular viewer short on television. Like, so I think this is going to run for a while. Nothing's going to change for this year, but I do think things will be tweaked for next year, because I don't think the GA they will not want this happening next year, that they have to. What was a well-intentioned product with GAA Go giving people more games to watch at different times has turned into probably something that, hey, Jesus, like they probably will take reputational damage. And I do think they need to be upfront about answering questions. I do think they should go to that Oireachtas committee and just answer questions and put it out there in terms of what exactly is the GAA Go model, how does it work, and just the worst thing you can do is hide away and look, it will go away in time, but it will come back in 2 weeks when the football matches are on. It will come back in late June when the two of the 4 All-Ireland football quarterfinals will be on GAA Go rather than RTE as well. Like, so I think they've got to lance the boil here while it's going on, rather than because it'll happen again later on in the year. Like, it's but the one thing I don't know if you notice it as well. People saying RTE are 50% shareholder of GAA Go, that's fine. Well, not fine, but did you notice the last few weeks when RTE did their highlights packages that they didn't use the commentary from GAA Go?
I didn't actually notice that.
Mike Finnerty did the commentary on GAA Go for Cork and Tipp, but it was Ger Canning's commentary did the highlights, and it was the same the week before. So there is a subtle difference. Why that is, I don't know. Maybe they're trying to throw people off the scent a bit, but if the GAA and RTE are an arm in arm on GAA Go, why can't RT use Dave McIntyre, Mike Finnerty's commentary for their highlights packages. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't either. And look, I worked in the Sunday game. I did several shifts there last year, and like generally what happened was if somebody's live at a game, this was my take on it. I didn't go through all the editorial meetings or whatever. Generally, just cut out the clips with the commentary with it. And then the other matches, let's say you don't have a full commentary team down at, I'll give an example, let's say Sligo against Galway down at Market's Park, but there's cameras down there and it's fed back, and then you'll have somebody doing commentary as if it's live from the studio, and it's recorded and cut together. And then there's other things where you do the voiceover. You just pick the best clips and do the voiceover. So I hadn't actually noticed that, but that's a good point.
It's like you say, I think Dave McIntyre did the Dublin Wexford match last Sunday, but there was John Kenny's commentary on the Sunday game. So there's obviously a reason why they have to do that. I don't know. I say maybe they're throwing people off the scent, but it does feel a lot like, and a lot of what Sky Sports did, GAA Go are doing. The Gráinne McElwain, and a lot of the same commentators, a lot of the same pundits. I think some of the things they're doing in GAA Go are excellent. It's like some of the players that they're using as pundits are very, very good. Like Bubbles, I thought was excellent last weekend, and the interaction with Noel McGrath doing the interviews after the game. So they're doing an awful lot right, but I do think there has to be an argument that definitely going forward there needs to be a Saturday night game live earlier in the year. Don't be, whether it's on Virgin or whether it's on RT, I think there does need to be a free-to-air presence at this time of the year on a Saturday. Okay, you're fighting with airtime with maybe URC quarters and Heineken Cup finals, fine, but I'm sure that can all be sorted out where maybe if 7 o'clock isn't available next weekend, fine, but you play the big GA match maybe at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, so there's no clash or something like that, or maybe you put one in RT1 for a weekend or two. But I'm sure I would think when the year is over, a lot of that will be sorted out, because like I said, GA and RTE definitely don't want the bad press they're getting, like what they've got over the last week or so.
Yeah, and if Virgin and RT are able to pool resources for the URC, maybe it's something that, and TG Cahir into the mix as well, and maybe there's an option with TG Cahir where you can have the commentary in English if you like, or Irish, just for this thing. I got a good message in. I'm not sure if the person, like this is privately on Twitter, I'm not sure if the person wants me to read their name out or not, so I'll leave it out. But it was about GAA Go again, and I think the main issue isn't with paying, it's access. Put GAA Go on the TV platforms as another RT channel, have a number to ring and pay with credit card for access to it for the season. Job done, everyone would be happy enough. It's the poor internet in 30% of the country, and setting up logins and passwords, that's the biggest issue for accessibility. And of course, trying to cast it up onto the main screen again. And that might be simple for people who are a bit younger, but for people who are that bit older, it can be very difficult. And even paying for tickets and booking them online and all that kind of stuff, it is difficult.
Yeah, that I'm sure. I'd like to think that's probably something they're going to look at, but I don't know whether, I'm sure if you had that as a Sky channel, it might be a cost of maybe something they could do on the Sairview box initially. I think that's something RTE control that you could, but then. If you have
an RT and an RT plus one, it shows that there is a possibility of having another channel there.
Yeah. Or maybe an RT Sport. Like I wouldn't go down the road of a dedicated GA channel, particularly because if the GA get it, rugby will want it, and then League of Ireland, who we all know are crowing for more live games, they could say, if you're they only show occasional League of Ireland games on Friday night, I'm sure they'd fill that pocket there. You have a live game every Friday night. So there's definitely something about Virgin are saying that RT probably have more sporting rights than what they can show. And I think RT definitely will have to go down the road of maybe having, as I say, if they can have RT Junior, why can't they have RT Sport? And it doesn't mean you have to have live sport or sport on it 24/7, but it's just there. And if 7 o'clock on a Saturday, there's a rugby game or a soccer game that can't be. It's not been shown on RT2. That avenue is there.
Yeah, and like even for a sports channel, it could be like plenty of the channels over the years where broadcasting doesn't start until 6 p.m. today, on certain days of the week. Anyway, we'll move on from that. The Tipperary footballers are out in the Tailteann Cup this weekend, and it's in a group that features Down, Waterford, and first up it's Meath. That involves a trip to it's in Tailteann Park this weekend. Obviously, tough week for David Power as well, of course, and family with bereavement there. But how do you see Tipperary? Like, it's been a tough season so far. How do you see this going?
Yeah, I suppose first I'll follow up with that. I suppose sympathies to David and Michael and the family and the passing of their mother. I know that she had been ill recently, and I suppose a sad time for them all. And look, I spoke to Stephen O'Brien there yesterday, just ahead of the game, and I think he and the players are very, very keen to do David and Michael proud this weekend, because look, it's been a difficult campaign, but look, there's nobody, as he said, the words he used himself, the Powers eat, sleep and breathe Tipperary football to have for generations. And look, what David has done, like David got as a minor under 20 minor All Ireland, he got a Munster championship. Like, he will go down in annals of Tip history as being probably our greatest manager. Like, and look, it's the way things go at the moment. Like, you're eating bread of suit forgotten, a couple of bad results, and you're the world's worst. But look, this weekend, look, on paper, it's the toughest draw Tip could have got. I think Meath are the top seed, and they're the one that comes down from Division 2. They're the one that lost out by Clare winning the getting through to a Munster final and Sligo. So, but I think it's a fantastic opportunity. Like, you'd have to think Meath must be so brittle at the moment, feeling sorry for themselves, feeling they shouldn't be in this competition. Like, I'd love to see Tip first 10 or 15 minutes, instead of maybe playing overly defensive football, just cutting loose. Go and see how brittle Meath are, see how mentally set up they are, and get ahead of them, and maybe put them on the back foot. Maybe get the Meath supporters on their backs, and you never know. We could come out of there with a positive result. You take to think Meath will probably have too much class and quality, because we just don't know how brittle Meath are at the moment. And I made the point there to Stephen yesterday. Meath lost to Offaly by 4 points. Tip would see themselves on a par with Offaly. So if Meath were that poor against Offaly, you'd have to think Tip have a sniff here. But then I think Tip have nothing to lose. Meath will be expected to win. So I'd love to see Tip playing with a small bit of abandon here, counter-attacking, attacking with speed, and see what happens. There's a smell here. I think there's more of a chance of us winning this weekend and maybe down at home the following week. But I wouldn't rule us out getting a result.
No, I wouldn't entirely either. And I think that, like you're saying, confidence in Meath will be fairly brittle. They started the league well, then they started to come apart a little bit. There's a lot of people questioning Colm O'Rourke now. And look, he was a pundit for 35 years or so. He knows the game here. He knows at this stage this hasn't been good enough. There's question marks about the coaching, about the setup, about, a variety of different things. And there is, like, Meath should be challenging in Leinster at this stage, a county of their population. Whoever you want to blame over whatever timescale, it's a disgrace that they basically aren't able to challenge a Dublin team that's taken a little bit of a downturn. Let's call a spade a spade. So I think Tipperary have an opportunity. Are they favourites? Definitely not. But you can't rule them out totally here. So
we'll looking from the outside, if you're somebody in Meath, if you're O'Rourke, and if the only thing he did in the last 3 weeks was say, look, lads, we are where we are. Look at what the Tailteann Cup did for Westmeath and Cavan. They got momentum to take into next year. I think the only thing Meath are missing at the moment is momentum. If you're a Meath person or a Meath player, this is a massive opportunity over the next few weeks. You're back. You're in a competition where you should win at least 2 or 3 group games to get out. There should be Tip and Waterford. Down probably will be tricky. Get into the knockouts. There's a lot of very even teams. They could lose, but they could win. Momentum. Maybe, and then carry it into next year. I think a lot of with Meath is there's a lot of negativity at the moment. But if they start winning games even at this level, it carries something into next year.
And then the Tipperary Camogie side, in terms of what Dennis Kelly's doing and where the team is going. What are your thoughts?
I got in time to watch all this game. Like, they were full value for the win. Wasn't a great performance. Wasn't a great game. But look, Tip Tipp did enough. Like you think 4-11 to 1-9, like it's, as Dennis Kelly pointed out, 11 points isn't a hectic score either. Like, so it was a bitty performance, so it was enough on the day to beat I suppose you think that was a Waterford side to beat Cork the week before, like, so like that was a fair win. Like they Bet Carton and some Lorraine Bray, some good players, and like they really they put or will need to be better, and I'm sure it will. Like Tipp had been off for a few weeks, so I'm sure there was probably a bit of rust there too, as there was in the first 15 minutes, but they got better as the match went on. Big game now in the Munster final next Saturday in Thurles against Clare. That's the time before the Waterford-Clare game. So look, if you're a hurling supporter in Tipp and you want to go support the girls and take in a good inter-county game, this is a great opportunity. Like, okay, this Munster final will play no hander part in terms of the All-Ireland series because they're completely separate, but Tipperary haven't won a senior piece of silverware since 2010. Like, and I think for a stepping stone for a team that have been so close the last few years, I think winning a bit of silverware, I'm sure you would have experienced with Kula. That first bit of silverware is so important. It makes you feel 10 foot tall. It's going to be a tough one against Clare. Clare had their number last year, but I think Tipp have kicked on a small bit from last year. I hopefully they have. And please God now they get the win, because I've always thought getting to that first final and winning one is the thing that's holding them back, and just mentally stronger and more confident after that first title win.
And then the Tipperary ladies footballers came up short against Waterford, and Kerry up next isn't going to be that any easier, is it?
A few more, but I suppose the one thing for Tipp is they're competitive. They were very competitive against Cork the week before, lost by 3. Very competitive against Waterford, who we know are traditionally a good senior team. From what I believe, I didn't see an awful lot of it, but Tipp had enough chances to win that game in Dungarvan, so they're competitive. Now they're up against the form team in the country at the moment in Kerry. They're playing them in Banshee next Sunday at 2:00. So look, Tipp can't get to a Munster final there, but it's all about now taking more momentum, taking something from that game, being competitive against Kerry, then going into the All-Ireland group stage, where, like, you look at Cork, Kerry, Waterford, if you're able to compete with them, maybe outside of Dublin and Meath, there's not an awful lot of other teams wouldn't scare you when it comes to the All-Ireland series.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's it for the show this week.
Busy show, like, there's a lot going on. I'm away next week, so I'll have to organise you a special guest to build up to the Limerick game. So I'll have to let you loose. I forgot to tell you that, but
thanks for letting me know live on the show.
Sorry, I know I keep forgetting I have a week. I'm off next week, but like I'm really I haven't looked forward to a home game for Tipp as much as this Limerick game. Like, it feels like a big knockout month. You think the crowd that's going to be there, it's building up perfectly, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. Look, we can't wait for that. And your prediction, actually, in one word?
I think we can win it, but the thing I'm fearing is we put so much stock into that game that it drains too much for the Waterford game, which is probably going to be the one that defines it for us. Like, so I think we'll have a clearer picture if Waterford don't get into it. I was talking to somebody last night about it. Do you want Waterford having something to play for in the Tipp game, or do you want them not and being a free spirit? What makes them more damn? We saw the bad side of Waterford team with nothing to play for last year when they mailed it in against Clare. But would they want to show it to Liam Cahill with nothing to play? It's an interesting one. I don't know whether I want Waterford to lose or win on Saturday against Clare. I don't know what. I'll be an interested observer, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I'd want Clare to win because it, then increases the likelihood of one bad result for Limerick knocking them out of the championship, and obviously they're the big one. Right, so that's it. We'll be chatting again soon.
Cheers.